I knew it the moment I walked into that church, that I was back in that time, that nostalgia. Me standing there in my best suit, well dressed, shaved, trying to hide the pain, but as soon as she walked in that white wedding gown, it felt like I was hugging a cactus, and I am shrinking to it. I had no intention of going, but old friends, they said, wouldn't be the same without you. But knowing she'd be there and actually seeing her standing at the altar in white, with flowers in her hair and someone else's ring on her finger, that's a different kind of knowing altogether. That's a knowing that sits in your chest like a stone you can't swallow, and you are just another spectator sitting in the audience and not the special one, the one you should have. Okay, so first part, middle school, the beginning. I first met Priya Singh in year 7, in the back row of a geography classroom in a grey November in Manchester. She'd just transferred from a school in Leicester, and she didn't know a single person. Neither did I, really. I mean, I knew people, but I didn't have anyone who actually knew me. Not the way she would come to. She borrowed my pen. That was it. That was the whole beginning of us, a black biro with the cap slightly chewed, passed quietly between desks while Mr. Harris was drawing river diagrams on the board. She gave it back at the end of class with a little nod that somehow communicated, "Thanks. You're all right." Within 2 weeks, we were inseparable in that way that only happens when you're 12, and the world hasn't taught you to be guarded yet. We'd eat lunch together on the steps outside the science block, arguing about whether the school pizza was genuinely edible or just architecturally impressive. We'd walk part of the way home together until our roads split, and on the days we had nothing to say, we didn't say it, which is rarer and more precious than most people realize. Her laugh was the kind that caught people off guard. Not delicate, not performative. It was sudden and full, and occasionally a bit too loud for libraries, which meant we got shushed more than most. I used to try to make her laugh in the most inconvenient places I could find, just to see it happen. By year 8, everyone noticed. Her friends noticed. My friends noticed. People would pass us in the corridor and give each other that look, the raised eyebrow, the small smile, the "oh." Those two expression. My mate Danny used to say it so plainly it was almost offensive. "Just go out with her already, James." And I'd say something like, "It's not like that." And he'd say, "Mate, it is absolutely like that." And we'd leave it there. The thing is, I wasn't wrong that it was something. I just didn't have the language for it yet. I was 14. I knew I wanted to be around her constantly. I knew when she wasn't in school, something was missing from the day, like a color had been turned off. I knew that when she laughed at something I'd said, it felt like passing an exam I hadn't studied for, but I didn't call it what it was. I was too afraid to call it, or even acknowledge it. Part 2, high school. The almost secondary school sharpens everything. The feelings get louder and the stakes feel enormous, and suddenly a conversation that would have been nothing in year 7 carries all this weight you don't quite know what to do with. By year 10, Priya and I had developed this rhythm, this perfectly calibrated, entirely maddening rhythm of being just close enough that everyone assumed, and just far enough apart that neither of us ever had to say the actual words. We studied together at her kitchen table while her mum brought in tea. Neither of us asked for. I went to her family's Diwali party and wore the kurta she picked out, and her dad shook my hand for slightly longer than necessary and didn't say anything, but said everything. We texted until midnight about nothing. We watched films pressed shoulder to shoulder on her sofa, and I was entirely unable to explain to you what any of those films were about. Her friends were less subtle than mine, especially Nadia. Nadia had decided by year 10 that we were an inevitability, a couple that simply hadn't filed the paperwork yet, and she treated our eventual getting together as a scheduling problem rather than an emotional one. "You're going to get together at Christmas," she announced once, with the confidence of someone reading a horoscope they'd written themselves. "It's practically written." Christmas came. Nothing was written. Or rather, something almost was, The Winter Carnival, Year 11. The whole school went, more or less, the big one they hold on the common every December, with the lights strung between the stalls, and that specific smell of mulled wine and fried dough and cold air that I still can't encounter without being immediately transported back. We went as a group, but the group gradually dissolved the way groups do, and by 9:30 it was just us, walking slowly past the last of the stalls, neither of us in a hurry to go anywhere. We stopped near the edge of the field, where it was quieter. She was wearing a burgundy coat, with a scarf tucked in at the collar, and there were snowflakes, the first of the year just beginning to fall, mostly melting before they hit the ground, but a few catching on her hair. She looked up at the lights and then at me, and there was a moment, an actual, genuine, crystal clear moment where the distance between us was nothing, and her expression was asking a question, her eyes beaming at me. I could clearly see what she was asking, and the answer was yes, a resounding yes, but I said nothing, smiled at the snow, said something stupid about the weather. The moment passed like a bus you've just missed, and we walked back to find the others, and we never spoke about it, not once, not ever. I've thought about that moment more times than I could count, and every time I recall that moment, I just punch the air. What would have happened if I just leaned in? Said her name? Said anything real? The version of my life where I did that runs parallel to this one like a road you can see but can't get onto. Part 3. After the drift. We went to different universities. That's the clean version. The longer version is that we went to different universities and we kept in touch for a while. Texts thinning out the way they do when geography starts doing what honesty couldn't. I'd think about her during lectures. During the first year, a lot. During the second, sometimes. By the third, I'd convinced myself it had simply been a chapter of one of those intense friendships that belong to a specific time and place and don't survive the transition out of it. That's a comfortable lie, and I told it to myself fairly successfully for a few years. I heard she was seeing someone during her post-grad. I heard they were serious. I heard they were engaged. Each piece of information arrived at a remove through friends of friends, through a mutual Instagram feed I was definitely not checking. And each time I heard it, I told myself it was fine. Which is what you say when something is precisely the opposite of fine, but you've run out of other options. Part 4. The Wedding. The church is small and warm and full of flowers I couldn't name. I'm in a pew 3 rows back from the front, and I'm watching her walk down the aisle on her father's arm, and she's smiling the way I've seen her smile 1,000 times, that full, unself-conscious smile that starts in her eyes before it reaches her mouth, and I'm smiling too. Because what else do you do? Because she looks genuinely happy, and that matters. That's supposed to be enough. The reception is held in a function room in the city center, with all the fairy lights, round tables, and speeches that make people cry in a good way. I find my seat. I eat the starter. I talk to the people next to me about nothing important. I am fine. And then Nadia sits down beside me. Nadia, who is 3 glasses into the open bar, has apparently decided that today is a day for honesty. She puts her hand on my arm and looks at me with the expression of someone about to say something she's been saving up for a very long time. You know she waited for you, she says. Not as an accusation. Almost gently. Like, actually waited. All through uni. Even after. She told me once, maybe 2 years in, that she kept thinking you'd just turn up, say the thing. She never really let herself fully go somewhere else until she finally decided you weren't going to. Until she gave up. I don't say anything. She's happy, Nadia adds, because she can read my face. She really is. He's good for her. I just always thought you should know. No, I did not want to know. I was happy. I was weaving lies to my heart that it was never meant to be, that she never would have, but that revelation just broke me. I sat there. The first dance starts. Priya and her husband step onto the floor, and the room does that thing rooms do. Stills, softens, holds its breath. She rests her head briefly on his shoulder. He says something in her ear, and she laughs that laugh, sudden, full, a little too loud, and he laughs too, like he's used to it, like he's cataloged every version of it, like it belongs to him now. And I sit there with a glass of something I've stopped tasting, watching the life that could have been mine play out on a dance floor 12 feet away, thinking about a snowy evening in December and a girl in a burgundy coat, and a moment I let go because I was 17, and scared and stupid and certain there would be another chance. No, there is no second chance. You only get one chance to seal the deal with your soulmate, and you've got to take it. I wish I had taken mine.